Hey everyone, welcome to Office Hours with Cloud Posse. It is March 18th, 2026. I'm your host, Eric Osterman. For those of you who are new to Office Hours, this is where we discuss the latest DevOps news, AWS announcements, and Terraform insights, all sourced from our sweetops community, plus a live Q&A you can't find anywhere else. Now, real quick, before we get started, I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. Cloud Posse has developed the ultimate infrastructure as code framework for Terraform called Atmos. If you haven't heard anything about it yet, you're missing out. Check it out. Go to atmos.tools and find out more. So, a quick note on how to get the most out of today's session. The format is informal, so you can engage as much as you like and you can ask questions in the chat. If you're curious about any of our open source tools like Atmos, this is a great place to ask. If you're watching the recording, keep in mind these calls happen live, so don't miss out. You can join us for future sessions by going to cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, cloudposse.com/office hours. And I do have one small ask. If you find any portion of today's call valuable, share it with your team. Just head over to youtube.com/cloudposse where you'll find the recording posted in a few hours. So here's what I got this past week. First one that caught my attention, given this kind of renaissance of TUI development, text-based UI development, basically console apps. Somebody has created the Figma for terminal UI development. And just like Figma lets you export now, like to different formats, this TUIStudio lets you do the same thing. Lets you, basically design what your TUI should look like in a, designer modeler, and then export that to any one of these specific frameworks. Most notably, Bubble Tea, which is obviously what like we use at Cloud Posse with Atmos, but similar comparable things like for TypeScript or other frameworks. So, Michael, this sounds like the kind of thing you would try out. Did you see this one?
I have not seen this yet. It's interesting though. I'm definitely gonna take a look.
Yeah. And only to be fair, like I was having a similar conversation with a buddy of mine yesterday, and he was telling me how he loves Figma and he's become a master of Figma and he uses it to quickly design the UIs and then export those, so the developers can implement them. And I felt a little bit of FOMO for a while over the past year, not being an expert at that, but I don't know anymore. These days, dude, Claude Code is just so good at interpreting requirements that I think I can just skip that step for the most part. At least for the things I've been designing, I've been really happy with it. So that is my way of saying I wonder, you know, well, TUIs might be a little bit more complicated in some way due to intentional design constraints in a console. But pretty cool. So this was another thing that was shared to me. John on our team brought this to my attention. It's a trending project, already up to 28,000 stars, almost 29,000. And I have not, so he set it up. He said he had to literally like pull the plug because it was too, he got nerd sniped too bad getting it set up. But here's my understanding of it and why I think it's an interesting project technically and philosophically. So if you've been following the OpenClaw movement and what a lot of people are doing with OpenClaw, one of the first patterns that's emerged is developing your own mission control. I did that too. And it's in the vein of this idea that these days it's so easy to build UIs and the fundamental concepts of things like Kanban boards, projects, document databases, and statuses and metrics that you can just get that whipped up pretty quickly. It one-shotted it pretty quick the first time I did it and spent a few more iterations, and it's been pretty cool. But what it brings to light is how the category of project management software is maybe getting challenged in a way. And I know Jira and I know Linear and Monday and everyone is jumping on this bandwagon to bring in AI into how it's managed. But fundamentally, where it's going with agents is it's almost like we need to rethink how or add another level of responsibility to project management software where the agents themselves are using it autonomously. The agents themselves have their, the personas or their identities, and Paperclip brings this all under one product here. It's both the dashboard to understand what your agents are up to, what they're working on, the standard task-based work, but also the hierarchy, the org chart for who's doing what. And I thought that was cool. Anyone try out Paperclip? And looks like it works together with OpenClaw, so that's cool. So yeah, maybe something I'll get myself nerd sniped on over the weekend. Related to that, NVIDIA, not to be left out, has come out with their own OpenClaw alternative called NemoClaw, branded as being a little bit more secure, coming with the ability to basically have sandboxes and working with their own models that you can host locally, so not paying the tax for that. I don't know much about Nemotron. Anyone have experience? How good is this model?
I haven't tried it yet, but I'm gonna give it a shot. I have a small little agent toolkit, one of those like Raspberry Pi like things from NVIDIA that I'm gonna try to set it up on. So I'll let you know.
A Raspberry Pi-like thing from NVIDIA?
Yeah, they have
The
it's-
Sparks, is that what they're called?
I think it's Sparks or like a Nano kit, a
Hmm.
Jetson, NVIDIA Jetson. They have different size ones, so you can get like the 2 gig, 8 gig, pretty much a full graphics card or whatever. But
I mean, you have one of these things, Ben?
no, it's
Okay.
I didn't
Just a
invest that
little
much
thing,
in a
Raspberry Pi like. It's
yeah, a
on the
quick five
side.
thousand dollar
I
Raspberry
got
Pi.
three of them just for the hell, just
Yeah,
hell.
one of those
Look,
just for
Graham
the
got
UI
high, all
too.
right?
No, it's I think NVIDIA Jetson Nano yeah, one of those. I
Interesting.
think they dropped the price a while back. And I got one of the like 2 gig ones, so it's been one of those things I need to set up, but just haven't had the time, but maybe
Huh.
soon.
Interesting.
And so it seems like, if I'm understanding it correctly, I'd be able to self-host one of the models there. And then the thing that I want to try out is using the auto research, which I think I mentioned last time, to try training a model on that little Raspberry Pi to see how close it can get to like Claude or something. Obviously, it won't be, as good or keep up to date, but maybe I can focus it
That's
on
interesting.
something specific.
Ironically, their own NanoClaw doesn't work on that yet.
Maybe I won't be using that then.
Uh, oh, looks like they have some a working implementation on their way. So maybe you will. And back to this. All right, so this is where every office hours it does this. Okay, there we go. All right, so this was an interesting project that came up in my LinkedIn feed of all places. And it's pretty hard for any project to stand out, especially one that, probably was whipped up pretty quickly. But why this one stood out to me, it's something that I've been so tempted to do or try, but haven't actually explored. And what it is a re-implementation. Okay, so taking a step back, if you're familiar with Terraform, OpenTofu, how it works, there's basically the execution layer, which is the Terraform binary or the OpenTofu binary, and then via RPC, remote procedure calls, it spawns sub-processes, which are your providers, and then it talks to those over gRPC. Now, that means that you could technically rip out Terraform entirely and continue using all the providers. And the providers are mostly licensed MPL or MIT or Apache 2, etc. And this is actually what Spacelift Intent did, which we talked about on office hours. So Spacelift Intent, they built like a new driver for Terraform, you could say. Still reads HCL, still talks to the providers, but then they built their own backend. It uses, I believe, Postgres, and then they built a conversational layer on top of that so you can work with it. And behind the scenes, it's generating Terraform resources in the database, and then you can import, export that to or from HCL. This is a similar approach. I think it's written in Cargo instead, Rust rather. And yeah, so it's a re-implementation and that also uses a Postgres backend and lets you use Terraform providers. But more than that, I haven't studied or gone into it. I don't know that much about it, but it's cool that it enables these kinds of options. This is interesting because if you think about what we had on our show, was it last week or the week before, was a state graph, right? And state graph has done something that was surprisingly difficult, right? It was finding a way to dynamically generate the graph of what's changing based on the HCL and then persisting that in a Postgres database. And that required like dynamically manipulating HCL at runtime munging that graph. And I can't explain it nearly as well as Malcolm did, but it was non-trivial. Which begs the question, is the problem in the Terraform core itself? And I say this naively, having not spent a day looking at the complexity that's involved with running something like Terraform and computing the graph, but with the optimism that these are solved problems and maybe there are better ways available to us today that weren't available when the Terraform project started. Going back to the initial opening, why I've been nerd sniped with this is like, I've always been wondering, at what point does Atmos itself not even need the Terraform binaries or the OpenTofu binaries at all and can just, become its own IAC orchestration layer, if it makes sense. Look, not something we're going to pursue at this time, but this makes me think it isn't that impossible. Any thoughts on this thematically or this project or the concept? All right. Then let's go back to, I thought this was an interesting deep dive or overview on how they achieved scale on the SSH protocol. And anybody who knows, how the HTTP protocol works and virtual hosting is this header here, which I think was introduced in HTTP 1.1. That's what your client sends as part of like the HTTP preamble. Like when it makes the request to the TCP socket, then it posts a text blob with a bunch of key value pairs. And one of those is this host header, and it's saying, hey, I want to go to this website. And that's what allows one IP to handle, an unlimited number of virtual hosts. So how do you do that with SSH? Where there's no way the SSH, the protocol doesn't have the concept of what host you're connecting to. And like, SSH has been around for God knows 30, as long as like at least probably 50, 60 years at this point or something. So you're not going to make changes easily to the protocol. How did they figure it out? Well, they did something kind of clever. And when you authenticate with SSH, you are authenticating with an identity via your SSH key. And using that identity, then they are actually So they have basically one layer that does the authentication, and then they route that to one of their backend hosts or VM machines, um, is my understanding, kind of how it works. And then they have pools of these VMs, and they ensure that you hit one of those based on your identity, is my understanding. So check that one out if that's interesting. I was just checking the chat here. So yeah, John Duarte was sharing, going back to the previous post on what was it? What was the project called? Uh, this Oxide project did is in principle similar to what Pulumi did originally, at least, which was Pulumi, implemented support for first class programming languages by then ultimately shelling out to the Terraform providers. So similar in concept. You know, these kinds of posts almost don't surprise me anymore. And if it wasn't that this was, discovered by Google and Lookout, a collaboration between Google and Lookout, Lookout being one of the foremost security, like mobile security companies out there. They uncovered in the wild, meaning this is actively being exploited, an exploit that works on devices uh, of iOS 18, not including the latest patch releases. And literally visiting a page is enough for a full phone takeover. It's just, it's not fun. I can't believe that that level of severity exists just by visiting a website. And all right, perfect. What I find the most interesting, let's talk about some new feature we've just released in Atmos this past week. This is something we started several months ago. I mean, we started it back in December, but we've been planning on it for a while. So what did we do? What does native CI mean? So if you do a lot of CI, a lot of workflows, a lot of GitHub Actions, Jenkins, GitLab, etc., your workflows start very simply as you get it working, and then as they evolve, they become very complicated because to do anything, it's a lot of shell foo. You're running like Terraform and piping that into TFCMT and then piping that into T and then doing some grep expressions on the outcome of that. And then that gets too complicated. So you put that into a reusable GitHub action through a composite action. And then you have a bunch of those composite actions. And now you have reusable workflows. And now your reusable workflows take inputs and those workflows call other workflows. And suddenly you've just created a real mess of YAML, calling YAML, calling YAML, calling bash, calling foo, calling, piping processes together. And it's just gnarly. And this has been status quo for running tools like Terraform in GitHub Actions, GitLab, etc. It's been status quo for so long, I think we forget that it doesn't have to be this way. If the tools themselves were written to be CI native. So if the tools themselves knew how to perform what was expected of them if they're running in CI. And we realized this at Cloud Posse with Atmos because here we are building this tool for automation. And all we did was follow the crowd when it came to GitHub Actions. What do we do? What everybody does. We created repos for every action. We wrote those repos in TypeScript, and those repos, shell out to call Atmos and parse configs. But that was the norm. And we realized that this is really hard to test. It's really hard to validate. It's really hard to release new versions of Atmos when that's the case. And it's really hard to understand, frankly, when you have a solution distributed across so many repositories. So the wish that we had was, can we get something as simple as this? When I run this command, can that work the same for me, whether I'm on my workstation, whether I'm on Windows, whether I'm on Mac, whether I'm on Linux, whether I'm running in GitHub Actions? Uh, and the answer is yes, but it was so much more work than I could have imagined. So this line is fleetingly simple because it looks the same as the command that anyone here probably running Terraform has tried to do at some point in GitHub Actions. Terraform plan, Terraform apply, or Terragrunt plan, Terragrunt apply. But that's hiding the fact that you had to get OIDC somehow, or exchange your OIDC token for AWS credentials or whatever cloud you're on. It's missing the point that you had to maybe initialize a backend or even create the backend to begin with, if this is maybe a preview environment. It's missing the fact that you probably had to install OpenTofu somewhere, or maybe even multiple versions of OpenTofu if different environments have different version requirements. It's missing the fact that you had to well, I talked about the authentication piece, and then you need to initialize the Terraform. And then you need to run Terraform plan. And now you need to surface that to somebody. You need to say like, hey, here's what's going to happen in the plan. So like the go-to thing a lot of projects do is they post a comment on the pull request. And then you quickly realize that after pushing 10 commits, now you have 10 comments. Or maybe your root module is so big that you even hit the limits of what you can put in a comment. So then you need to put that into a job summary. Job summaries look something like this. So then you use tfcmt to do that. You have to install tfcmt, and then you have to update your bash scripting to redirect Terraform plans to some JSON file. And then you need to format that for both the output so you can see, high level, maybe what's going to change, and then, maybe what the outputs are. Anyways, maybe you get my point. There's a lot that you have to do just to get started doing Terraform in CI. And now with Atmos, we've made that possible so that your GitHub Action workflow is more or less this simple, at least for the cases that this is initially done. There's still the concept of like ordered dependencies, and I'll talk about that on another office hours. We have a solution for that too. But this here, install Atmos, run a plan. And to get that working, you can configure OIDC in your Atmos configuration. So now Atmos can handle the token exchange for AWS credentials. And then you might want to enable CI in Atmos. So you say it's enabled. You say that you want it to output the outputs if you want those outputs in the summaries and so forth, or accessible to other steps in your workflow, rather. Enabling summaries, enabling checks, creating your own custom templates. Like this was a template we created so the plan looks like this, the plan file. And then and then plan file storage. This is something that we've implemented, but it's not fully ready yet. If you want to approve a plan, for example, as part of your code review process, then you need to apply that plan after you merge. So you need to store that somewhere. And that too has been really complicated. But since we wrote this all in Go, it's really easy for us to integrate with all the Go SDKs on GitHub. So now we support artifact storage for storing plan files and retrieving those and applying them. So with all that said, I'm going to do a demo. Any questions before I jump over to the demo? All right. So let's go here. So I'm going to go to a public repo. I'll share this in the chat here. And actually, to make this even more interesting, I'm going to show you my workflow for making some of these changes. So it makes it just more realistic. So I'm going to share my whole screen here instead. All right. So if you've attended office hours before, I always talk about Conductor. I love Conductor. Everyone has their own tool. This one works for me. Each one of these here represents a separate Git workspace, a separate Git tree, a separate feature or thing that I'm working on. And all of them can be running in parallel, leveraging my Claude Max subscription. So we're going to start a new demo here on this example V2 project. I'm going to dictate something here. Um, help me with the demo here. Reverse the color from blue to green or green to blue, whatever we're set at. So it's going to go check out the repo. It's already been checked out. It's going to go investigate where it needs to change, what it needs to change to flip this from blue to green. And then we're going to open up a pull request for that. So it looks like we're going to flip from green to blue. Sweet. Sounds good. Let's approve that change. One of the things we like to do in all of our projects is include skills now. And those skills make Claude very intelligent and it knows how to make changes. And that's cool when it comes to the infrastructure side because the developers don't have to know necessarily how all of this works, even though it's very clean and logical, as I'll show you in a minute. But here, so that's done. Now I'm going to click this button, create pull request. That's going to use the PR template for this project. And we can see here's the change that is staged. We're changing the color from green to blue. All right, there we go. PR is open. Here's what that looks like. One thing I love about Cloud opening in my pull request is that it always follows directions really well. It's updating our PR template exactly the way I like it to be updated. We see the files that changed, no surprises there. We go down here and we see it's kicked off the feature branch workflow. Now, to save us time, since this is a demo, I'm going to jump the gun here. I'm going to add a label for deploy, which is what's going to tell this feature branch to go deploy. So here we can see the process unfold, basically build, test, deploy in that order. We're in the build phase. It's going to build the binary, build a Docker image, push that up. And we proceed on to test. This is just, standard CI stuff, right? Nothing Terraform specific yet. It's going to run the go tests. And there we go. They passed. So the next thing that happens is we expect a deployment. I have to go back. There's going to be a new event because I added the label. That label triggers the workflows to go through again. So the previous run, it skipped the deploy because the label wasn't there. It's going through that process again now. And it's going to deploy. Let's go back to here. This happened to me twice today. I haven't updated this to use a AWS credentials for ECR, so we're hitting public public ECR rate limits, unfortunately. So while we let that settle down, why don't I go and show kind of what this looks like on another demo that I did earlier today. So here, if I go over to checks, one of the nice things that we'll see is the build test deploy ran, but I can go to the summary on this. And here we see that summary was automatically added by Atmos. And then we see here the preview environments that have been deployed. These are also set by Atmos because we enabled deployment updates in native CI. So you can click on this. It takes me to the preview environment. For this, you can see this is PR32 based on the URL. And let's see what else is interesting. Really want to show the status checks, which was the other thing. Unfortunately, because we didn't get to the Terraform step because of the rate limits, that part failed. And if I hit this one more time now, I think we'll probably hit the rate limits again. But we'll curse the gods and try it one more time. While that runs, why don't I jump over here and show you how simple the workflows look now. I'm going to show you a wart that is exactly the kind of thing we don't want, but we have a PR coming that fixes that. This is what I mean by shell foo, like kung fu, shell foo. Here we're piping into TR. That shouldn't be necessary. The fix here is we just need to change this to format GitHub, and then this works fine. But what's cool about this is Atmos is handling authentication, so it's not that we need a separate GitHub action configured in yet a different way. This works the same way in CI as it would work locally for me. Locally, I'd be using AWS Identity Center with single sign-on. That configuration is in the repo. I don't need to configure anything on my machine for that to work. Then we build and push. This is using the credentials that we acquired up here. And then down here, deploy. The deploy step is so easy. It's literally checking out the repo after we installed Atmos and then deploying the preview environment. We set up some environment variables. Those environment variables are consumed by the Atmos configuration. I'll show you those in a second. But going back here to that workflow, this here is installing whatever Terraform versions or OpenTofu versions that I need. It is handling the authentication, is handling the initialization. It is then running Terraform plan and then apply automatically with this deploy action here. That is creating the job summary I showed you earlier. That's where that came from. It's creating status checks, which I haven't been able to show you. We'll see if the next build works. It'll comment on pull requests, but that feature is coming soon. It'll upload plan files to artifact storage. That feature is also coming soon. It's more or less implemented, just needs some more testing. Any questions on this? And then we merge this PR into main, very similar workflow. We can just run a deploy and continuously deploy to the dev environment. So previously we were deploying to the preview environment. And all of that is defined in a couple of places. So the auth configuration here. So here's how we authenticate. Here's how Atmos knows how to do OIDC. Here's how Atmos knows what to do if I'm using permission sets. And here is the Terraform configuration for our stacks. So we have these 4 stack files here. Here's for the preview environment. And you see, we're just taking that environment variable and passing that as an attribute to the component when we deploy it. So that's how we are able to get dynamic URLs for every preview environment. And then the defaults are just defined here for the application. So this is the image repository. This is the image tag that we are setting that we're going to pull from the preview environment, health checks, auto scaling, and any other path. You see, these are just variables, and those are passed to the Terraform code that's here. And the Terraform code accepts variables just like any Terraform, any vanilla Terraform project would do that. And what's cool about this is this task lives here in the repo. Developers working on this project can make whatever changes they want to it. They're not blocked by like a centralized DevOps team and their modules. But if you didn't want that and you wanted that to come from a central location, that's what's so cool because everything in Atmos builds on everything in Atmos. So that's where you can do component source provisioning. So in your Atmos configuration, if you wanted to pull that from a centralized catalog in your stack configuration, you could just say, hey, get that root module here instead. And Atmos will go fetch that on demand. So let's see if we were lucky with this latest pull request or refresh here. Woohoo! Oh, saved. We were saved. So here, now we see the status check. Here's the status check that was posted by Atmos. This shows that 20 resources were added for the new ECS task. Nothing was destroyed, nothing changed. And here's where I see those environments. So this branch was deployed successfully. I can click here and view the deployment. Now we see that it's blue. Previously it was green. And behind the scenes, each one of these represents an iframe. When I click this, it sends a shutdown signal to that pod. It keeps running for roughly 5 seconds until it gets deregistered. And to show you that it's not fake, I can just be a little bit more aggressive here, shutting down things. So ultimately, we reach failure. And wham, that nuked everything because everything pulled itself out of the load balancer. And in a little bit, this should come back online as health checks come back to life. And there we go. All pods recovered. So that's easy ECS deployments using Terraform, using Atmos, without a bunch of shell foo. Any questions?
That is awesome.
And Jeremy, you've seen where we came from with this. It didn't used to be that awesome.
Nope, nope. There was a whole lot more shell foo.
It was pretty complicated. Yeah. All right. So let's see, what else do I have? And that was also a demo of conductor in action. It looks like it got signed out here. Hold on. All right. One second.
So, Eric, are you finally ready to say you don't need folders for GitHub Actions?
Pretty soon, getting there. There's some more announcements coming soon. I'll do more demos, but yeah, simplifying workflows because you barely need any workflows. Um, so that was that. There was a someone shared this in the Slack, which was how Cloudflare manages infrastructure as code using Terraform. I didn't read through it yet, so I don't have much to add to this, but we'll share the links afterwards. Let's see. There was somebody here in the sweetops community that shared it. Anyone read this article? Have something to add? All right. And then last thing was another itch I've wanted to scratch, but never pulled the trigger. It's a fun little project. Obviously, it vibe coded probably 2 months ago and never really went anywhere. But what would infrastructure look like if it was more like in React? And being curious about it, I don't know that I like XML, HTML as my alternative as well, but it is clean. It is easy to read. Yeah, kind of fun, like, tail, you can use Tailwind style descriptors for your classes to change how your components work. So,
Bring
yeah.
back XSLT.
Yeah, right.
God.
Well, yeah, it's all fun and games until you need to do a diff.
Yeah. Yeah. And then ultimately it transpiles into Terraform, and we're back to CDK So definitely gone through the thought experiment a few times, and we've learned a lot from React and how to think about architecture, overall like software architecture, and what a good framework should feel like. And that's gone into the thinking in Atmos and how we design it, but obviously not TypeScript or React. All right, that's all I got. Any other interesting links anyone's seen this past week?
Hi team, this is the hall. It's been a while. Not drawing guys.
Oh, hey, Hal. It's been a while. Yeah, yeah, good to see you here. Any projects to share?
Uh, I help my clients for some tough infrastructure issues, and for now I'm not going to promote any application. I just work on some interesting application I worked on for a while. If you like, it's okay to demo it for now.
You have something you want to demo?
Yeah. Just a quick screen sharing. It should be
Yeah.
a couple minutes.
Yeah, sure, we can try
I,
that.
I just that's interesting that I
Oh,
uh,
yeah, John Duarte, we talked about CMUX actually a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was really cool. It's built on top of Ghosty, right? By Hashimoto. But a cool project. I was looking for something that supported vertical tabs, and that fit the bill.
I
Oh,
heard.
okay. So this was the project, your accounting project that you built?
Yeah. That's starting from invoices, and then later on I add more functions like the expenses. I just use AI that's set up here in the AI configuration. This is Anthropic, and the Hackable is a virtual.
Hmm.
Uh, and so here you can see this all recognized by AI, and you can see the files here is this is recognized one by one, and this is the expenses, and also it also support emails, and you can set up your email, then you can send an email to your email box, and it will grab your the expenses from your email box, and then save it here. Uh, and
Yeah,
also
so
I
you
use
built
the
you built your own Expensify, it sounds like.
yeah, I specify, and also this is the statement you can see here. It's a recognize
Hmm.
everything from a PDF file, and you can this quite it's quite surprising that it recognized 22 transactions, and you can review the files here. This is all mocked up, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm not sure. This is, I just uploaded, and would like to share this with the team. Yeah, to be honest, this is my hobby project, and just for me
Yeah,
to
yeah.
learn web
So
coding.
what's been your tool chain developing this project?
Oh, I use a lot of. Let me share my whole screen here.
So you
Uh,
built this to scratch your own itch as well? Are you using it for yourself?
for now is yeah, just for myself. And try to also share the script, share the repo to the community at too, but I'm not really not good at that. And I use a lot of tool like Windsurf. You can see the Windsurf is a really fast to write some features, but it's not as good as a cloud. And the Windsurf can give you grok code and also SW 1.5 fast. Oh, this is not free anymore. Before I use it for what? Oh, but this is a free.
Okay.
Interesting. Oh, this is fast. This is not free.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's just so remarkable, right? How easy it is to replicate software these days. Like as you have here, I see elements kind of like we said, Expensify or FreshBooks or um, you know, basic
And so
aspects of
yeah, you see
QuickBooks and
the
stuff.
anti-gravity. I use anti-gravity to refactor the UI. So
Mm,
it's yeah, pretty good at UI. And
hmm
also that cloud code. Yeah, quite I before the session I fixed a couple issues with cloud code. Really, really impressing. Uh,
Yeah. Check
impressive.
out Conductor. I have
Oh,
to say that
conductor.
every time.
You mean a new tool?
Oh yeah, that's the one. That was the one that I used for my demo. I really like it because it lets you switch between Claude Code and um, Codex, OpenAI. So
Oh, nice, nice.
I
What
I
is
shared
the
I shared the link in the Zoom chat here.
awesome, awesome.
All right. Well, thanks
Yeah,
for
thanks a lot.
the little demo. Let's see here. Any other things in the chat here? What do we got? TmuxAi.dev. I don't know if I've seen that one. Let's see what that one is. Share my screen here again. Yeah, Tmux is another project that feels like it's made a real resurgence with the advent of all the terminal-based AI editors. I don't know. I call me old fashioned or old now. When I was younger, I was all for Tmux and screen. These days, I just want a UI. I can click. I don't want keyboard shortcuts.
To be fair, I've been combining TmuxAI with Pi Mobile, although I wouldn't say Pi Mobile's ready for prime time. I had to do lots of fixes for it, but um, it's a Pi hyphen mobile. I think you'll hopefully show up on GitHub. I don't know. I can find a link otherwise. Um, I guess I gotta, yeah, GitHub. Yeah, that it's nice if you have an Android device. It
Hmm.
remotely manages Pi sessions. I've just I know we had talked about what was it, Omnara, but this is just a lot more control than Omnara, and also you don't have to pay for it.
Hmm.
It runs off of Tailscale.
Hmm.
But beware, I think that there are bugs in it right now that I mean it took me probably 3 prompts to get rid of that it was working consistently for me. And it's just a nice thing to just be able to have 3 or 4 things going. And
Hmm.
what I mean, I run Pi in a container, and it's kind of if you know about I think this was introduced a couple calls ago to me. But this is kind of where the Pi framework is where things like OpenClaw got their inspiration, right? So
Uh,
it's pretty good code. And uh, what's a quick way to say it? It's not like you don't have to go full OpenClaw with it. You can just give it a bare minimum and then throw it in a container with a code base. Come back later and inspect the container. Um, if you really feel worried about something, you can obviously sandbox it or throw it somewhere else, and it's tail scale. So
hmm.
you can just have your phone connect to that there. Manage everything. I've
Have you
liked it a
have you
lot,
checked
but it
out Paperclip? We talked about it earlier. You might not have been on
I
the call yet.
just I joined the call right as you were finishing the discussion on it. So I have looked at it, but yeah, I bet you could even implement something like that with this. Because the different sessions do know about each other
Hmm.
mildly. So you could probably do something like that. Yeah,
It
Paperclip looks pretty neat.
talks, yeah, it talks about open cloud code, but yeah, no, nothing yet with
I
Pi.
I again, I've tried a lot of Cloud Code, and I think um, I still like Pi more because when you start using other models, you get the ability to pick what they're best at.
Hmm.
Whereas I know with Claude, you're dealing with what is it like 10,000 line or whatever, like super wrapper prompt that tells Claude how to behave, right?
Hmm.
But when I'm using things like Kimi or Minimax 2.5 or GLM5, and I guess there's now a new one called Hunter, which is like an open router. There's a few different things that are out there that are new, and they're just really fast and good with something like Pi. You just have to remember that there's no guardrails on it by default, so you add those in. But but yeah, I found something that I think with at least coding agent, Pi coding agent, and Pi mobile that to me is just perfect now.
Cool.
I can just open up my phone and be like, oh yeah, okay, go get this repo and do this, and oh do that, and I know that it's all in containers. I know which machine it's running on. Um, I can resume them on those machines or on other machines anywhere I want. It's really nice.
And did you skip over OpenClaw? I forget. I know you were waiting to see if there
I
was
was I was waiting on that, and I feel like the only thing that's again kept me away from it is it's too generalist, and I wanted something that gave me less batteries included because I really want to control everything that it has access to. And yeah, to me this just Pi coding agent really took the win for me. So
yeah,
it's just
gave you the building
you can
blocks.
make it incredibly limited if you want to. Um, so to me, that's really useful.
All right. Well, thanks, Jeremy, for chiming in on that.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
uh I'm gonna call it for today, and get going here. So thanks everyone for your time today. We will be posting a recording of this session to the Office Hours channel in just a few hours. If you ever need any support from Cloud Posse, like with your ECS strategy or Atmos, this is a great place to get it. Go to cloudposse.com/support. If you are just getting involved with Cloud Posse in our community, we call sweetops. Here are some resources for you. You can join these weekly live office hours and ask questions. Go to cloudposse.com/office hours. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/cloudposse. Our Slack community is at cloudposse.com/Slack. And our monthly newsletter is at cloudposse.com/newsletter, where I share kind of what I've learned over the past month through LinkedIn and these office hours sessions. So with that, have a great rest of your week, everyone. Talk to you soon.